second. Street Fighter Cross Tekken. Street Fighter Cross Tekken.
And now, the news. An unexplained...
Let the madness begin! Fight!
かかってくるがよい。よっこ。沈める。仕方あるまい。
Do you have what it takes? Fight!
どこを見ておる。
KO!
よがすまないもう行かなくて
You win! It's all or nothing! KO!
Power 0.
Don't blink!
邪魔しないで
KO!
無心の差
Power 0.
これもまた無心流の
You win! Are you ready?
作戦開始お前の番だ行けとりゃ
KO! Will the tide of battle turn?
ガードがうますぎるとりゃ敵を取るぞとりゃいい感じだかく緩んでおる続けてくれ続け進めるとりゃ
KO!
すまないもう行かなくては
You win! Let the madness begin! KO! Don't blink!
邪魔しないで 進める。本気を取るぞ。
KO!
無心の様。これもまた無心流の技。
You win! It's all on the line. Fight!
やってやるぞ。本気を取るぞ。
KO! You can't back down now! Fight! KO!
すまない。もう行かなくて。
You win! It's all or nothing. Fight!
I gotcha!
KO! Will the tide of battle turn? Fight!
君は怪我で済まないぞ。このまま沈める。 It's gonna get crushed.
KO!
No, they won't relist it. They've been saying they're going to for 3 years.
Win!
This game's too hard to run. It's because it runs off Games for Windows Live, which doesn't exist anymore, so...
Let the madness begin!
Yeah, I just bought the game, actually. I had a viewer buy it for me.
KO! What will happen next?
This game was just doomed from the start. There's so many things they screwed up with this game. I wish they would, like, make a sequel to this, because this game is fun to play. but it really sucked at launch. There was a lot of problems.
It's all on the line.
Trying to capitalize on the success of Street Fighter 4. This game is also insane production values wise too. They made like 30 new characters. Like, yeah, the Street Fighter roster doesn't have anybody unique, but everybody on the Tekken side is completely new. For a new fighting game to come out with like 25 new characters is like unprecedented. No one does that anymore. Tedia.
Do you have what it takes?
I don't know if people know this, but the first version of this game had like 15 characters or something that you couldn't get. They were DLC, and they said they weren't finished. But I remember, I've been in the FGC long enough to remember, there was some random guy that unlocked them, and he was playing them like a couple hours after the game came out. On disc DLC. People complain about that now. I'm like, man, did you play this game? They had characters you couldn't play them. They wanted you to pay for them. And then the gems as well. The gems gave you a straight advantage. I feel like the reality TV show was also really bad too. There was a lot of controversy around that. But I think the pay-to-win gems and just the first version of the game was way worse. I don't know how many people cared about the reality show. I mean, the community was a big deal, but I don't know. I think most people probably just bought this game because it was a new Street Fighter. I don't know how many people really follow that stuff. But yeah, the launch version was pretty rough. You didn't do enough damage. Yeah, pay-to-win gems. That should give you a straight advantage over people who didn't pay. And then constant timeouts on disc DLC. They did put out a patch for this game like a year later that made it a lot better, but even if all that stuff hadn't happened, like if they didn't have any of those things happen, I don't see how this game could have had as long of a lifespan as SF4, just because of when it was released. Keep in mind, when this game came out, this was like the last major fighting game, pretty much. The PS4 and Xbone were like right next door, and then PS4 had no backwards compatibility, so even if you liked this game and you upgraded, you couldn't play it anymore. It'd be cool to see them try again, just like maybe make it look a little bit better. I've never really cared for the SF4 art style. I feel like some of the characters look really bad. Some of them look fine, and then some of the other ones, they look like mutants. It's very disjointed. Like, for instance, Ken looks awful. Ryu's got the bug eyes.
Guy.
I think they did a great job with Guy. He's like one of the better looking characters. Cody as well.
Cammy, Chun-Li, Ken, Sagat, Dhalsim.
Like, Dhalsim's like perfect. Then Ken looks really bad. Ken just hasn't had a... He hasn't had a good character model for a while. The last good one he had was 6. Everybody made fun of his banana hair in the SF5 game.
Law, Xiaoyu.
切り開く我が信念に迷いなし
System startup.
Looks like it's time to hunt some fresh meat.
Training stage.
It was supposed to be a Tekken versus Street Fighter, but it never happened. Tekken versus Street Fighter was basically ended up being Akuma in Tekken 7. That was Tekken versus Street Fighter, but it was supposed to be like its own actual game. What's up, Alvi? Yeah, that hit me really hard yesterday. Which is interesting because I grew out of Dragon Ball pretty quick. I had that phase, but then I grew out of it. But then it was like it's more attached to the people I met through it, and like just fragments of my childhood dying was really hard for me to deal with. I haven't really watched much Dragon Ball stuff post Z actually. I played more of the games than anything, but kind of getting to the millennials are kind of getting to the age where the stuff that we watched or read or played, like the people that were behind them are starting to pass away. And I think that's why it hits a lot of people hard. Some people don't really care when celebrities die, but sometimes it's like, it's not necessarily that the person passes, it's just your childhood is passing. The things that defined your childhood and whatever memories you have attached to them. I mean, I'm sure some people have met their partners through Dragon Ball, or maybe they met their best friend through it, or it might have just helped them through a difficult time, and that can be hard to process. When Jason David Frank passed away, that was a lot harder on me than Toriyama passing, just because I've watched a lot more tokusatsu, and I never really grew out of that per se. I watched that a lot longer than I stuck around with Dragon Ball. But yeah, it's been kind of rough for people my age this past couple years. But Jason David Frank passed away, Paul Rubens passed away, and then Miura, the Berserk creator, Yu-Gi-Oh guy passed away. You know, those things will live on. And I think one thing people tend to forget is that just because somebody creates something doesn't mean that they have a lot to do with it anymore, you know? I don't think the Yu-Gi-Oh guy, bless his heart, I don't think he was making like 100 cards a year. You know, he created it, but other people were doing most of the work at that point. And after the manga was over, I'm sure he still had a lot of input, but people are like panicking about the future of Dragon Ball. I'm like, well, he's kind of just been like making designs, right? He was still working on stuff, but he wasn't really writing it anymore. He kind of stopped doing that after Z. They would keep pulling him back because it made money, but it's interesting that people always think that somebody retires or they pass away and they make something popular like that, that like they're gonna stop making it. I'm like, of course not. He already had a successor, which was the guy that's drawing the Dragon Ball Super manga. That was something that was already resolved. When you're in charge of a big property like that, there's always got to be morbid thoughts about, like, you know, if you pass on, like, who's gonna keep doing it and finding a successor and stuff. But I never actually watched GT. I thought it was kind of stupid to turn him back into a kid, but they were just totally out of ideas. Like, how can we keep this cash cow going, but like the creator doesn't want to do it anymore, but we want more money. There was some cool stuff from GT, but I think you can tell that it only lasted like 2 seasons. It was only on for like a little over a year. Should tell you, regardless of what anybody thinks about it now, that it wasn't as popular. It's interesting that they're doing that again with the new anime. They're turning them into kids again. And like this time, as an old school fan that like grew up watching it, I think it actually is a good time to do it, because the problem with the new Dragon Ball stuff is they just started introducing like literal deities and stuff that could just like snap the planet away if they wanted to, which is just boring. I think they needed to like power creep Goku and Vegeta to some degree, but like going into like whole universe and multiversal stuff is just kind of overkill. I really lost interest at that point. I get that Dragon Ball is like the OG power creep franchise, but I don't know, once you start having like the little guy Zeno that's just like in charge of the whole universe, just like, I don't know, man, it doesn't interest me anymore. I'm sure a lot of people feel that way. It used to be that when we were kids, we're like, we don't like these filler episodes where nobody's fighting, but then once they started introducing all that other stuff, everybody's like, you know, I just watched an anime, the slice of life anime with just the Dragon Ball characters and like little to no fighting. But it's like people realize like the characters are still endearing, but like the overarching plot just got worse. And it's like you still like the characters, but you don't like what they're doing with the plot. The whole having all the gods and stuff. You like scoff at that as a kid, especially people of my age. We hated the filler episodes and stuff because it prevented actually getting to the fights. But now it's like I was watching some clips a couple months ago of like the slice of life non-fighting stuff in Dragon Ball Super. I was like really endeared by it. Yeah, multiverse stuff has been really overdone ever since the Marvel movies started doing it. That was the problem with Bayonetta 3 as well. That game had a terrible story. It felt like the multiverse was just in there to capitalize on MCU popularity. It made no sense. It had no impact. Characters would just die to make the story move. yeah, what's the point of like having like 10 different dimensional Bayonettas, but then the only purpose they serve is to job in random ways and die so that you can get a new weapon. And then Jean dies from a literal mook, like a jobber enemy. There's all this multiverse stuff, and it's like, dude, Bayonetta already had a complicated enough plot before you added all the multiverse stuff. But then you add that, and it gets even more incomprehensible. I don't know, man. Hopefully that fad will die out soon. There's some interesting stuff you can do with it, but I feel like most of the time the general consensus is just like, it would be better if this stuff was just not here. And you just told a plot that I didn't have to watch like a 3-hour video essay to understand. I think most people feel that way. It's been pretty overdone lately. With Dragon Ball, Bayonetta did it. The new Final Fantasy remake is doing it too. It's like, man, why can't you just tell like a normal story and have it so that it's, you know, somebody that has an IQ under 500 can understand it? Not everything has to be complicated. some of the best stories out there are like just stuff that you can teach a kid to read. Now everything has to be mega giga-brained. I'm getting tired of it personally.
It's all on the line.
Yeah, there's already like a big Reddit post about the new Rebirth, the FF7 Rebirth. It's like paragraphs and paragraphs about how to understand what happened. Now, I won't go into spoilers, and I'm not a Final Fantasy fan, so I couldn't really spoil it if I wanted to. But the fact that somebody had to write like a whole essay about what happened should tell you that multiversal stuff is stupid. Especially when it's like people just wanted the game with not shit graphics, right? That's all they wanted. That's all anyone wanted, but you kind of have to accept that they don't want to do that. They're adding other stuff to it. I've seen some people say that it's to not make the old one obsolete. I'm like, well, when you remake something, the old one is rarely obsolete. Now, interestingly enough, in terms of video games, there definitely are some cases where that's true, but they're not mega popular AAA games like Final Fantasy. A good example is Tales of Destiny Remake. Like, the remake is objectively better in almost every way. They did take some liberties with Leon, the most popular character, and they kind of changed his characterization a little bit, his personality, but everything else about the game it's objectively better. Like, to the point where, unless you care about preservation or just playing the original work, there's no reason to play the original Tales of Destiny. You could say the same thing for Tales of Innocence R. Tales of Innocence on DS was a very rough game. Now, it definitely had some of the best combat you could find in a DS game for sure, but everything else about that game is a hot mess. I'm not even talking about the graphics. FF7 has shit graphics, but the rest of the game still stood the test of time. Innocence original game was very, very rough, gameplay-wise. Not just the fact that it had DS graphics, that's like the least important part. It was the fact that everything else about it was so cheap and poorly designed. The remake is objectively better in every way, even though the graphics honestly aren't that much better. The character models are still pretty low poly and not very appealing to look at, but everything else about the game is better, to the point where it's like, I tell somebody, like, yeah, just don't play the original. Like in Final Fantasy's case, it's like, well, the old one has been around for over 25 years. Especially now with like the mods, so they have like 60 FPS mod for that game. They have better models. They have even a voice acting mod. The fans have kept it relevant. You know, the visual part of it, the bad frame rate and the bad looking models, like all that's been fixed. So I don't know why they have the reason to, like, we need to not make the old one irrelevant. I'm like, well, people have kept it relevant, that's the thing. The modding scene for that game would make any other JRPG fan very jealous. They have a lot of cool stuff for that game. I don't know, though. Not really my position. I'm not really in a position to talk about it, but yeah, I find it weird that they just put, like, multiverse stuff in everything. I think people are already tired of it in Marvel movies. I think that's the funny part, is they ran it into the ground with the Marvel movies, but then everybody else started doing it because they think it prints money. I don't know, man. You don't need to complicate things with, like, 7 universes and 7 different Gokus and a dozen Bayonettas. I lose interest at that point. I might still like the characters overall, but I'm not interested in that stuff. It just makes it too confusing. It's not fun to enjoy the product anymore, because you have to think so much. There's other ways to make viewers think than adding a dozen universes. That's the easy way out. And then it gets so convoluted that even though people make, like, 3-hour video essays about it, you don't know if the people that made the show or the game or the movie actually even have an actual answer to those questions. Unless you ask them, you don't even know, right? That's kind of what's going on with the Final Fantasy remake. There's been all these theories ever since the first one came out. I'm like, dude, they probably don't even know. People that are writing it probably don't even know. A little bit too much to look into. How many people really care? But yeah, it's been a problem for a few years. The first time it really affected me was probably Bayonetta 3. Just like the plot was already messed up, right? The first game is about literally babysitting a past version of yourself. That's the first game. The first game is essentially about babysitting a past version of yourself. It's already very convoluted from the first entry. And then you add like 10 multiverses to that, and it's just a complete mess. I think Bayonetta, narrative-wise, is interesting because it basically Jump the shark on the first game. Jump the shark on the first game was already fanfic material. Literal first thing that they ever made for it is already... They didn't quite have the multiverses yet, but they did have... Hey, the little girl that you're babysitting and protecting is you. Yeah, it's the same person. Somehow. I don't know, Bayonetta 3's plot, it wasn't just the multiverse stuff that made it bad. It was doing pro wrestling tier stuff with like, we need to push this character really hard because we want to write for them and not the old character. So we're going to try to push them to the point where you get really sick of them. But then like the problem with Bayonetta 3's writing is that the new character is a jobber. She sucks. She can't do anything without being saved by somebody else. Like, you know, pro wrestling has been better at this stuff. They've been doing this stuff for decades. Can you learn something from them? You don't have to make them invincible, because that's boring too. But like, they should be able to be somewhat competent. That was the other problem with Bayonetta 3's writing. You want people to accept the new character, then don't make it so they're useless without being rescued. It has nothing to do with her gender either, because there's plenty of other just male characters that do that too. It's just, she's supposed to be the new Bayonetta, but she sucks. Definitely have played a lot of other games that have introduced a new character way better than that. I think Yakuza did it pretty well, all things considered. They managed to make people like a character that's not Kiryu, and then on top of that, he has turn-based combat, which is a pretty hard feat. Go from like 3D beat-em-up gameplay to turn-based, and a completely new character that's not related to anything else that was going on before. They managed to pull it off. And then you look at Bayonetta 3, and it's just like they completely failed to do that in every aspect. I think it says a lot that one of the patches they did for that game basically made her not suck to play. Like, yeah. Starting to realize the mistake, right? She wasn't fun to play, and story-wise, she wasn't a very good character.
Final crash. Final crash. Bayonetta 3 is definitely one of those games where, like,
people ask me why I don't really care about cutscenes in games that much. That game's a perfect example. I watched the cutscenes in that game and I felt stupider for doing it. The story was terrible. I don't know, man. Just because Infinity War made $1 billion or whatever doesn't mean that you need to put multiverse stuff in an already convoluted mess of a plot. It was already convoluted enough. What does the multiverse add to it? Literally nothing. I think the first time one of the Bayonettas died, it did have some impact, but then the game does it like 8 more times, and you start to see the pattern really early on. Like, why should I care about this Bayonetta? They all are jobbers compared to the, you know, the main universe, Prime Universe or whatever, Bayonetta. And they job to random stuff that shouldn't kill them. And then you get their weapon. And then that repeats like 8 times. Like, do you want people to care about these characters? Because they're not relevant at all. They're like power-up pinatas. You can't really pull at my heartstrings when they have no personality. Like 5 minutes of cutscenes. And then they die to random stuff that shouldn't kill them. At least Vegeta jobs to like actual threats, right? He might suck compared to Goku power-wise, but he's fighting actual threats, right? Like Goku doesn't really, you know, one-shot them either. the Bayonetta multiverse clones or whatever couldn't even really say that about them. They'll die to like a random look off screen, something that shouldn't kill them. I don't know, the thing I don't like about the new Dragon Ball stuff is that they have all these literal deities and stuff that can just solve the problems, or like they can just delete the planets. But there's always some stupid reason why they don't. Like Beerus's whole thing is that if he gets pissed off, he can just do it, but you know he's not gonna do it, right? And then in the movie, he actually did, if I remember correctly. But then they just rewind it. I'm like, well, what's the point of introducing all that stuff? You're not gonna do it. And even if you did, there's other ones anyway. Other universes. I don't know, man. Dragon Ball had a pretty simple story. It wasn't groundbreaking, it wasn't Shakespeare, but, you know, people of all age could enjoy it, and there was always the underlying theme of, like, no matter how bad things get, you know, you're supposed to not give up. And I think that's something that anybody can learn from. Power Rangers does the same thing, too. And that's not exactly the most epic plot out there, either. Like, why do you need to make it more complicated? I can't wait till they start doing that with DMC. It's gonna be, another 8 versions of Dante that will, die to random stuff, and then they'll give you a new weapon. Like, oh, here's Dante from Greece, and he's gonna give you a weapon. The only way for him to give you a weapon is for him to die. And he dies to the most stupid stuff that shouldn't kill him. Yeah, in Bayonetta 3, Jean dies at the end from, like, getting stabbed by, like, the level 1 Mook. Like, the level 1 enemy that's, like, just a jobber enemy to, like, teach you how to play the game. That's how she goes out. A character that was in all 3 games just gets one shot. For no real reason. Like, why? This character's been around since the first one. She was like the original rival that you fought. You think that if you're gonna kill her off, at least give her a good send-off, not just she jobs to a random enemy. Like, why even have her in the game at that point? People really like that character. Like, nope, that game shits on her whole legacy. I think the worst thing is that, on top of that, is the only time she's playable, for the most part, is in elevator action minigames instead of the actual game. You can't play her in the actual levels. She has, like, very little story relevance. It's just kind of there. I really wish they had added more stuff to that game, because the gameplay, when it let you play it and you weren't doing shit minigames, was actually, like, really fun. There were some things about it I really liked that you don't hear anyone talk about because everybody just focuses on the story, which, I mean, admittedly is understandable. The story is pretty terrible, but there were some things about that game that were really cool. I wish that they had done more with it. Like, added more weapons or like a roguelike mode or something. That would have been really fun. But I've heard rumors that they're going to put the Bayonetta trilogy on the next Switch. And I totally believe that, just on the basis of what tends to happen when a new game console comes out. Is there's like a couple actual games, and then the rest is all just remasters. That's pretty much what the PS4 was when it came out. The PS4, like, first, like, 2.5 years or so was almost completely remasters. There are only a couple games that are actually worth upgrading, like Bloodborne was one of them, of course. I can't really think of too many others. I didn't get my PS4 until 2016. And that was, like, the only time I felt like I was actually missing out on anything. Because everything else I wanted to play was still coming out on PS3. So I do believe that actually will happen. I don't know how reliable that source was, but I wouldn't be surprised if, like, they were going to support Bayonetta 3 more, but then they got told that they need a shelf filler for the new Switch. So they got commissioned to make that. I just hope they add more stuff to it. Thing about Bayonetta 3 is that it has, like, some, like, really nice stuff about it. Like, the fact that you can chapter select. You don't have to play through the whole game, but there's so many shitty mini games that, like, the replay value is in the complete toilet.
Welcome to the Ace Mind training system.
See what happens, I guess.
マイ夏目響コハラグナーザブノエルバーミリオン投稿するなら今のうちです。
Another example of a video game I played where I watched the cutscenes and I regretted it was definitely Tales of Arise. That game tries to make you feel bad for literal slave traders. I'm not making that up, by the way. The main bosses in the game are like slave traders, and then like the last 2 hours of the game they try to humanize them like 30 hours after they died. And like, first of all, I get that their redemption stories can be good things, but there are some things you can't come back from. Writers didn't seem to understand that. Like, dude, these people enslaved an entire race. Like, you can't redeem them. As soon as you decided to make the villains people that, like, enslaved an entire race, any chance of redemption, having it not be stupid, was gone. But that game actually legitimately tries to make you feel bad for them. I remember getting to that point and laughing. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? It's kind of weird because, like, Tales actually does have its fair share of villains that are just, like, flawed. They're not outright evil. They're usually trying to, like, solve a problem in their world in a really flawed way. But they're not just straight mustache twirling villains, which gives them a lot of depth. But I don't know, man. The other Tales bosses did not do that. They didn't do that. The game tries to, like, literally make you feel bad for them. Like, man. I don't know how people play story-rich games so much. I feel like we shit the bed really often. Like, constantly. I know people don't like some stuff they did in the new Yakuza game. I don't really understand the gravity of that stuff because I've only beaten one game, but that's about what you would expect. I think the thing about Yakuza games is that they have so much stuff that's, like, not story. So if the story pisses you off, there's still a lot of value. I think it's worse when the game is mostly story and they shit the bed, then there's, like, not much reason to really play it.
無駄ですよ。痛いですよ。行きます。やっ、近づか消えない。やれます。やっ、どうですか？当てる。これ終わっちゃうんだ。
Not really a fan of how they make them do more damage. With this new patch, it's kind of whack, honestly. I liked it before, where you could make the game difficult in other ways besides just getting tickled and dying. They're gonna do what they're gonna do, I guess. Never really a fan of when the way that they make things harder is just give stuff more health. Usually, if I can avoid it, I don't turn that on. They kind of like invalidated some parts of this system by they do 30% more damage and they have 34% more health just from putting this stuff on. It's like, then what's the point of this? Why do you have this, which makes them take more damage or deal more damage and have more health? And then you have that at the top as well. The old system was better. It's like, you can make it so you have, like, no time. You have to speed run the game, pretty much, or else you take permanent damage. And, like, the traps doing more damage and hiding the options and stuff, instead of just a flat increase that you can't get rid of. Is dumb. I don't know, man. Really weird choice. It's like they copied Hades for that system, but then Hades didn't force stat bloat on you. And now this game just kind of does for some reason. Like, you had a good thing going. I think I'm just gonna chill out, folks. I'll try to be on in the afternoon. I need to stream more to try to raise funds, but yeah, I'm still feeling very drained from the other day when Toriyama passed. So I'm gonna take it easy. I might not always stream and record every day anymore, as I've already lost the streak because of stuff that happened with Capcom mods and Yuzu and stuff, so I don't know. On one hand, it makes me feel better. On the other hand, it might be fucking up the algorithm for me, so I'll see how I feel, but yeah, right now, it's not really helping. There's not really a hot new game to play right now. Kind of just playing random stuff, and I don't think people are super hyped for that, but we'll see what happens, I guess. I'm gonna go ahead and chill. I'll catch you guys later.